Hello and welcome everyone to the Switchrpg podcast. I am one of your hosts, Gio, and I'm joined as always by Johnny. How's it going, Johnny?
Hey, it's going good.
It's going good. That's great. If this is your first time listening, this is the show from Switchrpg.com where we bring you the latest in the world of RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. This week we are discussing the most recent Nintendo, the Pokemon presentation, as well as the Monster Hunter Showcase that was also recently done. And it's also the Nintendo Switch's birthday, 4th birthday. And we have something a little special planned for that as well. And we
Happy birthday!
Hey, happy birthday! All right. But first, what have you been playing?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. I finished playing Death Stranding and beat that. That is one weird game.
Yes, it is.
It is weird. It is a walking delivery simulator. It's got stealth and third-person action shooter mechanics too, which is also weird. I really like that game.
Really?
I have no clue why. I really like it. The story is really good. It's weird too. It's really good, but really weird.
Okay.
I just really enjoyed it, and the whole just picking up like a delivery to make, right? It's UPS the game, and then like looking at the map, figuring out what the best route is, and then like actually going and looking at the terrain. You hit a button and it sort of like shows you the terrain and how difficult some parts of the terrain is versus others, and just looking at it. And then you have to worry about like your balance of cargo that you're holding on to. And if you like trip or fall, which can happen multiple times and will happen, your cargo can get damaged. So you have to like worry about that. So you have to like best deliver this cargo to the end destination while not only is the terrain and the weather working against you, but then there's like a bunch of other stuff that works against you. It is such a weird game. I've never played another game like it.
Okay, so
that's why I like it.
Aside the fact that it is a delivery service game, how is the atmosphere? Because when I hear Kojima is involved in it, and I know obviously he is involved in it and what he's done in the past, how is it atmospherically? Does it have his vibe?
All over it.
Yeah, okay.
Big time. This
that's
like
good, right?
Kojima's biggest Kojima game. Like there's fourth wall breaking stuff. There's I don't know, like metaphor. There's certainly metaphorical stuff that's potentially relative to like real world stuff in numerous ways. Who knows if any of that is intentional or not? But knowing Kojima, it might very well be like foresight.
It's always intentional. People say the same thing with like some. For example, in movies where things, is that they like these directors and movies, and I'm sure Kojima, they think of everything.
Yeah, and I'm not a Kojima fan, but I really enjoyed this game. I don't think it deserves Game of the Year for the year it came out, but seeing all the other games that came out during that year, and Game of the Year going to games like Sekiro, I can actually see like, yeah, okay, it does deserve Game of the Year in certain situations. Would I have voted it Game of the Year? I don't know. Maybe. Because, man, it's just weird. I haven't played that kind of experience. That's the main reason why.
Okay.
Like, if I give it Game of the Year for the year it came out, it's because it delivered, pun intended, an experience that I have never had before in gaming.
Okay. It's definitely not something I'll ever even see myself playing. Yeah. For a couple of reasons. The PlayStation 4 aspect, like I need to have one. So I can't even play it. But again, it just doesn't interest me. I so wish he was doing like the Metal Gear and stuff and the Silent Hill stuff, but On the
It's definitely better than Metal Gear.
yeah.
And I've played multiple Metal Gears and own like I played a little bit of 4 and just could not finish that. Went through most of 5, beat the first one, the remake on GameCube, which was pretty awesome. Like this is probably Kojima's best work.
I don't know, man. I just don't know how I feel about that.
Well,
I just like I don't know what was building up in terms of that PT, that playable trailer or teaser or whatever he was doing with Silent Hill. I
yeah.
just would much rather have that experience than
Oh,
what
it's got
happened.
that. It's got that kind of. It's got horror in this game too.
Yeah.
It's like a weird mixed bag of like a whole bunch of stuff, and it's a weird. I can't explain the experience. It's an experience unlike any other. It's a world that is unlike any other. It's horror. It's got what's that war movie? Apocalypse Now. It's got
Mm.
Apocalypse Now vibes like crazy. It's got like World War I elements in there. It is all over the place. All over the place.
Okay.
It's so weird. It is so weird. It oddly enough, it's got similarities storytelling wise to Bloodborne.
Okay.
Like, yeah, so it actually a lot of it makes sense. It's very well detailed. There's lots of lore. Um, I can't really say anymore. It's definitely a game where you're either gonna uh, really dig it and potentially love it, or it just won't be for you. It's one of those games. It's one of the polarizing type of games out there.
Yeah. And I think another one of my issues with it, I hate when you have like real life people playing in video games. For some reason, that really irks me and bothers me. Like Norman Reedus is a playable character. I don't know, and I get that he was in at the end of the PT thing, but and it probably would have bothered me then. I just for whatever reason, it totally bothers me.
He's not the only real world
Oh,
person
and,
that's in
and you're right. Yeah, no, there are other actors in there as well. And I saw the same, or I see the same thing in Cyberpunk 2077 with Keanu Reeves. Anytime he's on the screen, I'm like, oh, why? Why is Neo in my game? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't get like the motion capture and stuff like that. It's great, but I don't get why to use certain characters. I guess it's you
It's
could
all
tell
money.
like you could tell Kojima. Well, I don't think it's money because Kojima put in. It seems like he put in like people he wanted to work with, did work with, or was just friends with. Because what's the person that runs Game Awards? Greg
Oh,
Keeley, right?
Jeff. Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff Keeley. Jeff
Yeah,
Keeley. He's in the game,
yeah. That's a friend, right?
right?
And
Exactly. So
that's why I think during the Game Awards, like a lot of people had problems with it because he's in the game. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's
yeah.
that's an issue.
Yeah. So it's weird. Uh, I really dig it. I'd have to think long and hard whether it would be my game of the year for that year, but
Yeah.
man, was it really good. And then I played a little bit with Pyra and Mithra in Smash Brothers. That was a new DLC character that got added in there. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
played a bit of Smash. Uh, just really fun to play with. Uh, Not too much in the way of like resembling the mechanics of Xenoblade 2. It's more so like visually, it it reflects how you play in Xenoblade 2, but gameplay wise, it doesn't really line up. But it's not a disappointing pair of characters. It's a cool set of characters. Just uh, it's it's just good. So that was fun. And then and they also added in like a bunch of Xenoblade soundtrack stuff and all that. So all the extra Xenoblade 2 stuff that they added in, awesome. And Rex is
Mhm.
in there just as a taunt. So every
Yeah,
now and then,
Rex is
we
in there. Is Poppy in there as well? Like, there's a bunch of other characters in there.
they show up in the background
Okay.
on the level, which takes place on Gramps' back or whatever.
Okay. That's
The
pretty
big
cool.
form, the flying form of Gramps, the
Yeah,
Titan
yeah.
form. And then just been playing my board game, just like testing it.
Oh,
against
okay.
myself.
Against yourself.
Against myself.
At,
Just
at
playing
some
against myself.
at some point, I'll have to get over there and help you out with that. And you definitely need like more than yourself for sure for people to
That
get
would,
over there.
yeah, that would be real good.
Okay.
So that's what I've been playing.
Okay.
What have you been playing?
Oh, I'm so glad that you have asked me. um, if you follow along on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Switchrpg, you'll know that I'm playing Crosscode as well as Bravely Default 2. Bravely Default 2 is pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't. It's not spectacular. I mean, but it's fairly standard in terms of if you've played the first one, you'll know what to expect. I think they may have helped a lot of people in terms of grinding. There's still that grinding, and some people don't mind it. Some people do. They did help you along with that if you have Nintendo. I don't know if you need a Nintendo Online, but you definitely need friends on your list. And I don't remember if you can do that without Nintendo Online.
How does
Anyway,
that work?
uh, basically, you're not playing along with people. You're just the more friends you have on your list, there's a mechanic in the game, and I'm not spoiling anything because you get it very very early, where you send Seth, the protagonist, on a trip, a boating trip, and he essentially is just looking for treasures and going to your friends list basically, and you're attaining treasures, gold. Basically, the treasures are XP boosts, so you'll get job point boosts, you'll get XP boosts, you'll get certain attribute boosts. So again, they're helping you along with that, and it's a totally you don't have to do it at all, but it definitely helps you out in the terms of not having to grind as much.
Yeah, and
So
that's on top of the speed up, right? Where you can make the game run like
y-
double or four
yeah,
times as
yes.
fast.
So that's total again. That's a battle mechanic. Is that what you're talking about? The combat?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the combat, I do it all the time when you're grinding. You just have to do it, and you can repeat your move set. So if you basically what you're doing when you grind, when I grind levels, basically I just full brave. So I go four attacks, basically four attacks for every character, and I just repeat. So there's a button you can hit, and you just repeat, and you can set your combat speed to max, and the lower level guys it goes a lot faster. The higher level, or if you're on the basically the same level of them, it's going to take you a little bit longer. Don't really recommend doing it that way. And the reason why you have to grind is basically because you have your main job and then your sub job, and the only way to level up your sub job is for it to be your main job at one point. So that's essentially why you have to grind. And when you're progressing your job, you get different perks, different passives, things like that. So that's kind of why you want to have your levels higher in those jobs.
Yeah, it sounds similar to the Octopath Traveler where you had a sub job where you can equip a sub job to the main job.
Yeah, and I'm fairly early in the game. I believe it's about a 50-hour game. So I think I'm maybe a quarter of the way through. And hopefully I'll be able to finish it because we're gonna be hit with some massive games. So hopefully I'll finish with that soon. I don't think I'm gonna complete the entire series on the channel. It's just too much. Even with Crosscode, I don't think I'm gonna be able to. That's also a large long game. I didn't realize that was such a long game.
How long
When
is
it's about, I'd have to look it up, but I think it's about the same length as Bravely Default. It's about a 40 to 50-hour game. It's a
it?
pretty long.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty long game. I mean, just in terms of the first dungeon took forever. So and I think the other remaining dungeons are kind of on par with that. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty certain that it's a long game. So that's what I'm playing now. I know for sure I'm going to be getting Kingdoms of Amalur, which is coming out, I think, next week. And I know that game is going to take up a lot of time. I don't know how much I'll be able to record that for the channel. Probably just do the tried and true 10 episodes and see how it goes, sort of deal. So Kingdoms of Amalur, and then I think you and I are going to be hitting the monsters together. the end of the month, so we got a lot of lot of our on our plate coming up.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what I've been playing, and I did just look it up. And Crosscode is about 30 to 50 hours, depending on how you play. So
Oh man.
yeah, it's a pretty long game. Just did not expect it from that, and there's DLC coming very soon to that. I don't know how. Hopefully, I'll just be able to complete it. I don't know about DLC. Anyway, on to what we're here for. There was a Pokemon. Was it presentation? Is that what they're calling it?
Pokemon Presents.
Oh, Pokemon Presents. My apologies. Let's fix that in our show notes here. Pokemon Presents, and there were a couple big surprises here. We had the Pokemon remakes of Diamond and Pearl. I see.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna sound like I'm really excited about this stuff, when in fact, I am not a huge Pokemon fan. I did at one point really try to catch them all, and it was more of an obsession than the game itself. I just wanted to catch them all and say, "Hey, look, here's a living Pokédex. I have every single one of these creatures." And I don't know, it's just Pokemon just doesn't really grab me. It's just I feel like, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording. It's just I feel like Pokemon's just been too stagnant for so many years, decades, 2 decades, in fact. It's just been way too stagnant. But you had mentioned that maybe they're breaking that,
They well, I mean the
or they
other
have
announcement
broken it.
they made, the last announcement that they made was kind of leading towards evolving, because it was stagnant for a bit, and they did very small baby steps on improving and fine tuning the traditional, very traditional RPG experience that Pokemon
Hmm.
games gave, and then with Sword and Shield, they started to deviate from that, uh, and started to sort of expand the immersion factor of what the Pokemon experience can give. And then what they announced later on, I guess we could talk about it now,
Sure.
which was uh, uh, all practically a Metroid Prime 4 type of reveal, called Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was it. Yes, it did show actual gameplay and actual in-game footage, but it was very rough looking and very early on. I don't think there was any UI, or very limited UI. It did show a little bit of the UI when it went to combat and showed like the moves, but that definitely didn't look finished whatsoever.
Yeah, when
But
when
what
you
that experience,
I'm sorry,
yep,
before you go on, but when you say Metroid Prime 4, I mean, they definitely showed like a billion times more than what Metroid Prime
yeah.
4 has showed.
But it, what I'm getting at is it still wasn't enough. Maybe Breath of the Wild, the first reveal of Breath of the Wild, would be better. But the first reveal of the Breath of the Wild was absolutely spectacular, but also didn't really convey how players were going to play the game, and that's kind of what Arceus is,
Hmm.
uh, because it just looked very plain and basic. But there is a a there's hope, lots of hope there, because it looks like there's semblance of promise that it's going to be the open world Pokemon RPG experience that most people, since like for the past 20 years, have been looking forward to. Most Pokemon fans have been looking
Yeah.
forward to. It has a fully right stick sort of, what's the word for it, third person controllable camera.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the proper term for it, which they did do in Sword and Shield, but now it looks like they're fully on board with that. It's got a little bit more actiony Pokemon capturing elements to it. Uh, there's sort of sneakiness that you have to do. There kind of isn't much to go over. I mean, they did show the character going into and out of a village, uh, seemingly seamless. And the world itself looked pretty vast and expansive. But there's some issues with it, mainly graphical, and the fact that they didn't really show too much gameplay whatsoever. So there's a big giant question mark. I think there's a lot of promise, but the game is like pretty far off. I would say at least 1 year away, and I would say probably 2 years away. I would say this
Yeah.
is a 2022 uh, ho- um,
Holiday.
holiday season type of game,
It'll be out this
and
summer.
potentially 2020.
It'll be out this summer.
Yeah.
No, you're
I
right.
mean,
It definitely looks rough around the edges. The world looks. See, here's the thing. Like Breath of the Wild did the empty world really well. I don't know what it was with that. The exploration factor really well. I think it's just be that type of game lent it to be that way. So I'm interested to see how they're gonna do it in Pokemon. Also, with again, I did bring back the staleness of the Pokemon franchise. Like, how are they going to do gyms? I know that's been a common staple in Pokemon games. Are they just going to translate or transfer or make gyms into something else? Like one thought I had was just make them into actual dungeons. Like I hate to say it, like a Zelda style, but just make them a dungeon. That sort of thing. I just think of how are they going to do this? One thing I really hope they do. I like the fact that they're doing open world. I just hope that the narrative is there. Like make this a really narrative heavy Pokemon game, and I think that's where you're going to really bring in a lot of people when you can bring in that narrative because Pokemon essentially the narratives really fall short and and what they've shown doesn't really lead me to believe that. I just really hope it's there because what they've shown is they've shown a lot of customized different type of playable characters. You know, they were all very different. So I hope that is will be a strong suit. A heavy narrative I think will be really important.
Yeah, I don't know about the narrative part just because of the time frame that this game takes place. It takes place in the far past, where the I guess an island nation is first being formed. So there isn't going to be much in the way of infrastructure and society within the world,
Right.
which means which you kind of hit the nail on the head with gyms. There's a very strong chance that there won't be gyms. The traditional sort of hit the eight or so different gym leaders
Right.
and then hit the master or whatever, and you're done with the game. I think that's getting thrown out the window, and I think the narrative is also probably going to get thrown out the window because with lack of society, there's kind of a lack of a story,
Yeah, well,
or a lengthier story.
I mean Breath of the I hate to go back to Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild didn't have a heavily uh populated population density. You know, everything was kind of sparse, but it was able to put together a pretty decent narrative.
Yeah, they might do something like that. I just don't know how they're gonna pull it off for this, but yeah, the narrative is definitely gonna be an interesting take as to
It's
how they plan on implementing it.
and it's also not Pokemon Company. It's not their strong suit. But I think they can maybe just take a little bit of their anime, take a little bit of inspiration from there. You know, but like you had mentioned, the focus of where this is where and when this is taking place, it may lend itself to being just more difficult. But man, I think in order to really stand out, it really needs to do something else. And just being open world is already doing that. It's just they need to put on another layer, I think.
Yeah. Uh, so so that's Legends Arceus. It's we need more information and we need to see more of the game and hopefully more in later developments of it so that it looks and runs better because it definitely looked performance wise choppy,
Mm,
right?
right.
Uh, so they have that. Later on this year is going to be the remakes of Diamond and Pearl, which looks really good, and apparently it's going to have the platinum content in there in some form or another. And then they also announced Pokemon Snap, which is coming out even sooner,
Oh
or the
yeah.
sequel to Pokemon Snap. And that's interesting. Not really an RPG, uh, but there's going to be essentially two hits this year,
Hmm.
and I really don't think Arceus is going to be coming out next year, but assuming they hit 2022, that's going to be 3 Pokemon games within a time span of essentially 1 year.
Right.
That's major.
That
That's
is pretty
major.
big. Certainly is. Just I'm really hoping that Arceus will bring in people like me. You know what I mean? Maybe like the fringe kind of people, you know?
Well, I mean, Pokemon is meant for a younger target audience, and
But
I don't think they're ever going to deviate from that.
this doesn't look like it's target like I guess going by its appearance, it doesn't look like it's targeted to a younger audience. I'm talking about Arceus or whatever
Yeah.
it's called.
Yeah, it's got the potential to sort of widen. It'll still have the target audience, but
Yep.
it'll expand into the older. It has a chance to expand and pull in more older, seasoned,
Yeah.
mature, whatever you want to call it.
Well,
So
or the people maybe that are in your group, right? Like that kind of played it initially and kind of stuck with it a little bit, and then maybe kind of fell out of favor with it, and just bring those people back. I think that'll be big for them, bringing in their older audience from a long time ago.
I'll tell you what, the promise of what could be significant change to the Pokemon formula will bring me back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
All right. Cool. And then just moving on from Pokemon, like you had mentioned, we do have a lot to look forward to, I think, with that. It's just for me, it's just not my deal, not my thing. All right, yeah, next we going on to the Monster Hunter has just taken over. I think a lot of people there's just been so much going on. So they had their little spiel, their little thing in the Nintendo Direct, and then they said, all right, look forward, look into March. I think it was 8th, right? We're gonna have our own presentation, and then that was three. Was it 3 days or 2 days?
4,
4 days of just
3,
information.
3 days.
4 days, 3 days, 34 days. No, they had a lot of information. And I didn't realize like how much is involved in all of this. There's just so much to ingest. Like I don't even know. Like I was talking to you about. I'm like I couldn't even keep up. I haven't had the time to go back and really watch everything. I was able to watch the initial presentation that they had, but after that they it was just so much stuff. So they had like Q&As, they had like information on Monster Hunter stories too. They had information on certain items. It was just they got really granular, they got very very specific with a lot of different things. And I honestly I have not been able to keep up with it. I think you have. But at first I wanted to discuss kind of Monster Hunter stories. Now, were you able to play the original on the 3DS?
No, I didn't play the original.
Okay, I wasn't able to either. I think that was more geared towards a younger audience.
Yep.
This one I feel is just different. I don't know what it is. It just visually looks really really cool,
Yep.
and I'm almost equally excited for Monster Hunter Story 2 as I am with Monster Hunter Rise. I really like that there's a heavy, again, we're talking about, I like it's very narrative driven, and I think it looks really really interesting.
I'm with you. It looks visually looks really good. It looks very polished type
Hmm.
of experience, and it's given because Monster Hunter has never had a complicated or intricate storyline. It's been, you know, serviceable to get the job done of having a solo sort of type of storyline experience. But other than that, it didn't take it to extremes, and you didn't do adventure stuff. It
Right.
wasn't an adventure game where you're traveling from one town to another and meeting new characters and developing relationships and stuff like that. And that's what stories essentially is doing that more traditional RPG experience, going out on an adventure. There's a major quest and that could change and there's going to be story twists and stuff like that. Really isn't any story twist moments in Monster Hunter games other than oh, you defeated this monster, but in actuality, it was this bigger monster, and then you defeat the bigger one, and then that's it. That's credits roll type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this show just looks really, really good. I mean, visually it looks like Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. One thing I really, really hate is that there are 3 more amiibo coming out, and I must have them. That
They
really
look
is
good. Those amiibo look good.
well, amiibo in general just have been looking better than when they initially started out. They just look a million times better. But
They
yeah, I will be getting them. I don't. Did they say what they're going to do in game? I don't think they mentioned that.
they didn't. They did say that they're gonna do more details on Monster Hunter Stories 2 at a later date. So
Okay.
that's probably gonna have its own little presentation, direct showcase thing.
Do we need that though? I mean, I understand they want to make an event out of it, but and I can understand why they did it with Monster Hunter Rise. Just there's just so much involved with that, but we don't need another thing, you know?
I think it could work. I mean, because they never really went into too much detail on Stories 2, so they could deeper dive into that. While in addition adding more interesting stuff for other Monster Hunter games like Rise, because, uh, for example, they could sort of hold off information on additional DLC type stuff for Rise, and then
Hmm.
during the Monster Hunter Stories 2 in-depth look, they then say, "Oh, by the way, starting today, whatever, or next week, there's going to be new DLC for Rise content," because they're actually coupling these two games pretty closely together. When you, for example, the save data will link and give you rewards between
Hmm.
Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2. So you'll unlock additional costumes in Stories 2 if you also have save data from Monster Hunter Rise.
Yeah.
That's just one of other potential examples that they have here. Who knows? Maybe the amiibo will do something in Rise in
Yeah.
addition to doing something in Stories 2.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I also just noticed that Monster Hunter Stories 2 is also co-op, so that's I don't know how I missed that one initially, but that's
Oh
also
wow.
pretty cool.
That's yeah, they need to go into deeper detail because they didn't really show too much on the battle system, and they didn't there's more there to show off, and I'll be definitely tuning in on whatever that is. One thing that they did reveal though is they gave the release date, which is very soon.
Yeah.
Well, not very soon, but it's soon enough, right? July 9th.
Yeah, that is soon enough. I was expecting it to be later than that, so that is pretty cool. So yeah, it's co-op quests and yeah, you can team up in multiplayer. What? Oh wow, that was really loud. Sorry about that. Um,
I didn't hear anything.
yeah, but they'll be able to hear it in the podcast. It'll be great for them.
Uh,
Yeah, it just looks really, really cool. I cannot wait for that. Like I said, I'm equally as hyped for it now. I mean, I kind of was interested in it, but now it looks really, really good. And there's also a deluxe edition, so they're gonna nickel and dime us for this as well.
it's confusing the content that comes in that, and also the content that comes with just pre-ordering the game. But it looks like most of it is just going to be cosmetic gear and equipment. Some of it is stickers that you can get of certain characters, companions that you get throughout the story. So weird stuff like that. Nothing. It doesn't look like any of it is going to be gameplay breaking whatsoever. Just all cosmetic stuff, which is great.
Yeah, that's good.
I would totally pre-order it just for the cosmetic unlocks and whatnot. The
Hmm.
only thing that would probably break gameplay a little bit is how they implement the amiibo stuff. So
Yeah, I
and
mean,
and
hopefully that's just cosmetics as well.
it might be something like you slap on the amiibo and all of a sudden you get a bunch of well done steaks or something like that.
Yeah. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. But who opens up their amiibo, anyways? They stay in their plastic prisons forever. So yeah, it's coming out July 9th. And also, I don't know that we knew this before, but it's console exclusive, but it's not platform exclusive, if that makes sense. It's coming out in Steam.
Yep.
I think
Oh,
I, I think it's also the same day. So it's coming out for the Switch as well as Steam. But then we deep dive into Monster
oh, yeah.
Hunter Rise.
It was like a double deep dive. It was like a pretty deep look into things on Sunday, and then another deep look into things on Monday or Tuesday afterwards. There was just so much content there. New
Yeah.
trailers that looked fantastic, showing off so many new monsters.
Can I just say that this is the best looking game on the Switch? Can I
It
say that? Or, I mean, one of, at least.
I would say it's up there. I don't know. There's some very good looking games on Switch. I think Xenoblade 2 is still incredible to look at, especially Torna, because they enhanced that engine. And then there's Breath of the Wild, I think is incredible. Astro Chain, I think is incredible. So,
Hmm.
but it's up there. I wouldn't say it's the best looking, but it is surprisingly good looking.
Right. And it runs, I mean, in terms of the demo, right? That's all we have to base it on. It ran well.
Yeah, a very very steady frame rate. The frame rate pretty much never dipped
Yeah.
below into a noticeable amount. It ran real good. The monsters were fantastic. They showed a lot of stuff. So they showed what the rampage part of it actually is,
Yeah.
and it turns out you were kind of right where you called it as a sort of rampage mode or horde mode, and that's kind of what it is.
Wait. Did you say kind of right? I was freaking spot on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
well, I essentially it's a tower defense, right? I mean, you can call it that. I mean, because you're setting up different like turrets and different weapon placements, things of that nature. You're yeah, different defenses. You're also getting NPCs to maybe help you out as well. But then you do, yes, you have the hordes in different waves coming in, which is going to be interesting, I think. But you presented some issues that a lot of these monsters are really like spongy. You know, they take up a lot of damage, could take up a lot of time. So
Yep.
I don't know. I'm hoping they deal with them sort of balancing issues. Uh, I
Yeah,
didn't I didn't see how many players could be involved in that. I'm assuming it's four still the most,
yep,
but
it's
that's
the full
where so if it's still four, then you have your NPCs kind of helping you out a little bit, whatever they do. So essentially, there's a little bit more involved with just other than four players. So
Yeah, and I think the way that they're pulling that off is that that rampage section takes place in seemingly a smaller arena-like environment
yeah,
instead of a bigger, giant, more expansive open world map when you're going out and doing the regular hunts. So it's a more confined area. The monsters coming in. It's going to have more than 3 large monsters at a time, which is something that does not happen in Monster Hunter games. Typically, you're fighting one large monster at a time, sometimes two, and very rarely do you fight 3 large monsters at the same time. I mean, Monster Hunter maps only have 3 large monsters at a single point in time. This one might change that. I don't know if they're going to change that, but you never encounter three more than 3 on a single map or in the same general area as each other, and this is bucking that trend in a interesting way. They're also doing phases where at certain time intervals the players are going to get major attack bonuses for their weapons, whatever their weapons is. So you're going to be kind of enticed to switch between using the defenses that you set up during the, I guess, defense setup stage of the rampage quest, and then you're going to be incentivized to actually melee or bow, whatever your weapon style is, and actually engage with the monsters that way. And then you can, those NPCs that you talked about, you have control over when you want to use them. So that's a bit of a strategic element as well as triggering additional NPCs to come and help you. You can do it single player, you could do it multiplayer, co-op, as you could any other quest in Monster Hunter. So it's essentially just a new format or a
Hmm.
new type of quest that you can take, because generally Monster Hunter is kind of limited on quests. You're getting capture quests, you're getting kill quests, you're getting in different combinations of that, where you have to like capture two monsters or two different large monsters, or capture three different large monsters, or kill three different large monsters. Sometimes it's kill. There's smaller fodder monsters essentially.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to slay like 10 of these things. Sometimes you'll get gathering quests, like
Okay.
go out and fish and collect whatever 5 of the such and such fish, or collect 10 things of honey, something like that, right? So they have gathering quests, mining quests, whatever. So all resource gathering stuff, monster hunting stuff, monster capturing stuff, and that's generally kind of what you have. And then they'll have specialized quests that are usually tied to story stuff, where you're doing like a very large gargantuan monster siege. So this looks like it's adding to that a new format to the quest. I might be missing like one or two other quest types, but this is definitely a new quest type. And to combine all that, it also has, I guess, I don't know if it's going to happen all the time, but in these rampage quests, there's going to be this new type of monster, enhanced monster called Apex Predators
Yep.
or Apex Monsters, and they're going to be coming in and messing stuff up in a hopefully very fun way, and it probably will be very fun.
It probably will be very chaotic. But yeah,
And
they also I saw somewhere or read somewhere that they're doing certain rewards, like rewards for this are specific to rampage type of quests where you can't get them in the regular mode. So that they're kind of incentivizing that a little bit, which is kind of cool.
yeah, I don't know if they would prevent people from getting rewards unique rewards outside of Rampage. I don't know if they would do that. Typically Monster Hunter is very flexible with,
Oh no,
because the reward
they are doing it. I
they are
read
doing
yeah, the director
is
said
the
that
rewards consumable items
no,
or
it's like armor pieces or
armor
maybe
pieces?
from the monster
Wow.
itself. Yeah.
Okay, that's different. That's very interesting. Uh, I mean, it's going to be a new type of quest, so it's not really that big of a deal that they are making it in there. The fact that I'm guessing it's probably going to be a drop from the Apex
Yeah.
monsters. That's probably what will make it unique. Is you have to do the rampages in order to fight the Apex versions, and the Apex versions are probably going to drop the unique stuff that you're mentioning.
Yeah.
There's some other stuff that you're going to be able to do in those rampage quests. Apparently, they have multiple tasks they have to complete during the rampage quests, and you don't have to complete all the tasks, and you can kind of partially complete your list of tasks
Yep.
and still be successful during that rampage event. So uh, it might not be the case where, because typically in a hunt you die, for example, or anyone dies in if it's multiplayer 3 times, then you fail that mission. So I
Yep.
don't know if they'll do that for Rampage, or if they have it might be a timer based thing. I mean, other quests are also timer, but this one might be solely reliant on timer. We'll have to see. Or actually, they did mention that the place that the monsters are storming, that little arena environment, I guess there's like a siege health bar
There
of
is.
of your fortification.
Yep.
So I guess that is your lose condition, is if that dissipates. And
Yep.
I'm wondering if that and the timer and dying 3 times are all going to be things that have to be
Yeah.
considered, or if they're removing the death counter.
Yeah, they did also mention at one point there that certain animal or certain monster, I call them animals, certain monsters will attack like fortifications, certain monsters will attack NPCs or people, certain monsters like they're all flagged differently in terms of their icon colors, but they all do very different things, which is kind of useful. But one thing that really has me concerned, even for the mainline game or the main type of game, whatever, outside of rampage mode, is communication. I think communication in these types of games is very, very important, and not being able to do that fluidly is a problem, especially in rampage mode where things can be chaotic and you want people to be storming certain areas or protecting certain areas. Not being able to communicate via voice chat and having to go through like a whatever dialogue system that they have in terms of chat is very clunky and cumbersome. So
Yeah.
how like I mean, other than using your phone app, which is atrocious. I mean, guys, hop onto our Discord server and use our voice chat. We have plenty of lines there. I mean, other than that, I mean, you're totally reliant on archaic systems. Like you would think there'd be some sort of fix or resolution for this, but
Well, I doubt Capcom would take a step back in what they offered before. I mean, Monster Hunter on the Wii offered voice chat. The
it's
Wii
just
U had
right.
voice chat.
Mm.
The 3DS Monster Hunter had voice chat. So it might be the case where all you have to do is just plug in a USB microphone and you'll get voice chat. That could very well be something that they are adding in there outside of whatever Nintendo
Yeah,
sort of offered.
and God forbid you need to connect like your USB headset if you even have one. You like
Yeah.
and you sit far away from your television set or your docked switch. You need like an 85-foot cable. They're just not making it easy for people.
Well, I mean, Nintendo isn't. I mean,
Yeah, no,
I
it's definitely Nintendo in there and the way they made this infrastructure for sure.
yeah, I'm with you on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Capcom went the extra mile and included ways. I'm almost certain that I don't want to say certain, but it's very likely that they have USB keyboard support in in this. They have it for other games on Switch, and I
Yep.
can imagine that they definitely have it for Monster Hunter because Capcom, I mean, just going through the various lengths that they've gone in order to spruce up and streamline sort of the multiplayer experience. They added a lot of new stuff in here.
Yeah.
For example, players can join in on your hunt midway through it,
That's
which was a
awesome,
new.
right?
It's a new thing that they added in Monster Hunter World, and now they're continuing with that. They've added a whole bunch of searching and matchmaking type of filters that you can do in order to match yourself up with stranger danger type things. You can like other players so that the next time you search for stranger danger, you're likely to get paired up with people that you've had past experiences with. So they're definitely adding more, and they're also adding. They tend to do this with Monster Hunter games where they have multiple locations of presenting the same information. For example, the quest board. You can access the quest board in multiple ways, and they are doing that even more in this one, where they showed off during that first sort of segment, where they're showing, oh, by the way, you can actually access your quests by pulling up the bulletin board via this method
Mhm.
instead of actually having to go to the bulletin board and stuff like that. So they're they are definitely adding more sort of quality of life, as you kind of said earlier, quality of life type of services and experiences to this, in addition to all the other like newer gameplay stuff. So I will say it might be a bit overwhelming, as Monster Hunter games kind of are, especially World. It will probably be overwhelming as a first time player or new player type of experience. It'll certainly be overwhelming for a bit.
It definitely was. As a first time Monster Hunter player, just playing the demo, it was quite a task to figure out because the combat isn't as responsive. It's not like a quick like attack time. The weapons are weighty. They
It's
take a
like
lot of
Dark
time.
Souls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I would say it's even more weighty than Dark Souls is, because you're hand
It
you're
can be.
you're handling these massive weapons, and they're all different, in the way in terms of how they work out in the field. Do you know what I mean? They're just all very, very different, and it was a lot to take in, that's for sure.
That it's commitment to the animation. So you hit that button to attack, you're committed to it. You might
Yeah.
be able to roll out and or maybe block, maybe, or sidestep. There's very limited options once you commit to an attack. That's kind of Dark Souls combat and Monster Hunter combat, and I love that combat system. It's more nuanced and requires uh, it's less based on button mashing. Button mashing will not get you ahead whatsoever.
No.
They're adding so there's other stuff that they've added, and they kind of explain the silk bind attacks a bit more in this. And it looks like the silk bind attacks is this older feature that they had in Monster Hunter Generations or Generations Ultimate. I forgot which Monster Hunter games had it, but I think it was called Hunter Arts or Hunter Art Styles or something like that. Uh, so the
Hmm.
Silkbind attacks seem like they're kind of like that, where the Hunter Arts, where you could sort of pick from a set, pick like two or three different arts and sort of socket them, equip them, and that will be your build as additional special attacks that you get.
Okay.
And these Silkbind ones are essentially that. They are Silkbind. The nature of silk binding adds that little extra mechanic where you can ride on monsters. If you bind them with silk and they become bound, you can revert and ride them by jumping on top of them. So that's a
Mhm.
different thing, and that ties into the silk binding. But also just unique abilities that you get, unique attacks that you get, and they have like cooldowns, and those cooldowns are pretty frequent, so they're gonna proc more often midway through combat, and you can customize them by going back to the tent midway in the middle of a hunt. So you can customize and change out your silk bind attacks if you're, for example, sometimes you'll go on a hunt and you're fighting two different monsters, and for one monster you need the leaping, the very vertical silk bind attack, or you need for another monster you need a more defensive type of silk bind attack. And each of these silk bind attacks are going to they're collectively, I'm guessing there's probably going to be for each weapon maybe 5 to 10 different possibilities where you equip, I'm guessing just two of them out
Mhm.
of the 5 to 10 that they're going to offer. And that's going to change based on the weapon that you have. So maybe there'll be some overlap where, yeah, the gun lance and the regular lance might have five of them that are the same, but each of them have five of them that are going to be unique to one another, type of thing. So there is some overlap on silk bind attacks, but there's also going to be each weapon type is at the very least probably going to have one silk bind attack that's going to be unique to
To
what
that,
that weapon.
right.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot. So there's 14 weapons. So that's going to be at a minimum 14 silk bind, different types of silk bind attacks. And yeah, so there's probably going to be like 20 or 30 silk bind attacks, maybe even more. And then you'll have a small list that you get to sort of choose from and socket. And you're going to unlock these silk bind attacks sort of later on, um, as you progress throughout the game. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's in addition to all the other progression type stuff that they already had in
It's
Monster
so
Hunter
insane.
games.
Absolutely insane. But I did notice that they're doing like the selfie camera. That was actually pretty cool. Like when I when it panned to like the owl holding the camera, I like really laughed out loud. I was like, What is this?" That is so. It was
I
just funny.
it was so good when they did that. Yeah, camera mode. Like, wow, yes, brilliant, well done.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. But I did notice that there were more than four people taking the picture. Like, what's up with that?
It could have been at a hub spot,
Okay. I didn't know that
and
existed.
well, the main there's always a central hub in a Monster Hunter game, and that's where all the players can meet up and join, especially if you're co-oping
Yep.
with other people. And then when you go out on an actual hunt, it's you and whoever else
Okay.
comes along, up to 4 people. Um, how many did you see in there? It could also be NPCs. So central hub, they took a selfie, and it could have been 4 players and then a couple of NPCs that they were standing next to.
Yeah, I'd have to look and find the actual clip, which right now would be impossible. But I do remember there being more than four.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if it was more than 4 players that are able to run around in the same sort of hub environment. That would be interesting because that I don't think they've done that ever done that in a Monster Hunter game where they went above the 4 player count. They're certainly not going above the 4 player count during a hunt. So
Okay.
I'm almost certain on that. I mean, if they ever did, that'd be crazy. A 6 player, 7 player, 8 player hunt. That'd be spectacular. That'd be chaos.
That would be chaos. Yeah, I'd have to I can't find the specific clip, so
Yep.
but I could have sworn that it was more than four.
You
Anyway,
know what is more than 4?
what is more
The
than
number of
four?
the number of new monsters.
Yeah, there are more coming. Like there are a ton of
Yep.
monsters already here and like a billion different environments. And then they've already announced one that's coming out in a free update, Chameleos or something. I'd have to pull it up.
Yep. Yep. And at least 2 more after that, also in free DLC updates. Normally they don't really do brand new monsters. And by normally I mean pre Monster Hunter World. They don't really add major new monsters. Sometimes they did. But in Monster Hunter World, they definitely start to add new major monsters with as free DLC updates.
Hmm.
And yeah, they're continuing with that, and they always added new DLC, free DLC stuff. The only time that they didn't do, if it wasn't free DLC, it would be like cosmetic. And Monster Hunter World did have the expansion, so obviously as an expansion, maybe you
Yeah,
count that as DLC, maybe
yeah, that's a
not.
little different.
Yeah, and it was standalone playable, I think. Ice World.
That I would not know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's exciting because they had so many. There's at least 20 monsters. Typically, there's like 30 to 40 monsters in a Monster Hunter game, and some of the bigger ones, like some of the ultimates or Generations Ultimate, they have like 70 or 80 plus monsters. It's crazy how many of them there are, and really like the showcase is fighting these new monsters and just existing monsters because
Right.
every single monster is a completely different fight. You have to plan for it differently. You have to interact with the monster differently. It's just great.
Hmm. Yeah, that's just there's just so much, and I understand why they're doing this, where they're just getting into like some of the nuance and in terms of even like, I think they were even showing people how to use weapons and whatnot. So they got really specific in this presentation.
Yep, yep, and they got into details, and this is kind of expected. Your sidekick, the Palamute or the Palico, the cat and the dog.
Yep.
So if you're soloing or co-oping with one other player, you're gonna bring both of your Palico, Palamute, or whatever combination. You could have 2 Palicos or 2 Palamutes, uh, whatever it is you want. So it'd be you and 2 others plus another player and 2 others. But the moment you get to 3 or 4 player co-op, you're only gonna be able to bring one Palamute or one Palico.
And who are you
Per
bringing?
It's gonna be Palamute all the way.
Has to be, right? I mean, it speeds up travel so much. I mean, I do see the Palico being very useful in terms of like the health drops that it does and whatnot. But being able to really just travel across the map is really helpful.
Yeah, and being able to get that extra movement speed and consume items while having that extra movement speed, that's very useful as well.
Right.
And also that wall climbing that you can do with the Palamute and speed up the walls real fast.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost a no brainer. Although in I forgot which presentation it was, but in one of them they were showing off a fight, and the Palico did this new thing that I've never seen before, where it planted a tree, like
Yeah.
a little tree, and it did this AOE heal thing, and that was powerful. That
Yeah.
was a really good potent heal. I'm like, oh wow, I wonder if
That's what I was talking about. I'm like, that would be really, really helpful in that
it is
situation.
it is very helpful. So yeah, I guess the trade off is that you get the sort of the caster support uh, abilities of the Palico, or you get the speed and agility and sort of standard attacking of the Palamute.
Right. So yeah, you must decide.
And we're going to be able to play more of this because they're releasing a new demo of Monster Hunter Rise
Nice.
Friday. It's coming out real soon in
So
like
the 12th, March 12th. Yeah.
yeah, March 12th, and that's gonna have it's essentially the same demo except that they reset the counter, the number of times that you can play, and they added in the sort of staple monster, the one that looks like a samurai in samurai armor.
Yep.
What was it? Magnamalo,
Yeah, that's kind of
I think.
their flagship monster for this game.
Yeah, so they're adding that as I forgot like advanced or expert fight or something like that.
Yep.
So I'm definitely gonna download that demo again and fire that up and go up against that monster and just see how well I do or don't do, um, and see how that goes. But that's coming out, and then just a couple weeks after that, it's the full release of the game.
The game will be here.
Uh, oh, and one last thing that they touched up on is it has 5 different environments.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yep.
had the that sort of I don't know what to call it, that shrine, forest shrine environment. It had the rainforest, the that sort of Aztecian rainforest environment. It had the desert environment, the snow environment, and the sort of volcano cave uh, environment, mountain type of environment. So,
Yeah.
and all those biomes look incredible.
Yeah. I mean, like we had mentioned, I just think this game looks incredible. Like all of it. This looks incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It's big. It's a big Monster Hunter game. This is not a little tiny Monster Hunter game. This is a big one.
And this one also is going to be released on Steam as well. Man,
I wonder when.
I think it's the same day.
No kidding. I
No,
wonder if there would be crossplay.
that I don't know. That I have no idea.
That's weird
I
because I don't see it on Steam at all.
don't think it's there yet. Do you see Monster Hunter Stories?
Let's see. No.
Yeah, they're. I know Monster Hunter Stories 2 is going to be there. It's actually at the end of their trailer. It shows it there, and I'm fairly certain that Monster Hunter Rise will be there as well.
It might be the case because Monster Hunter World came out on consoles first, and the Iceborne expansion that came out on consoles first, and then it took, I think it was like 4 to 6 months before it finally released on PC. So that might be the case here, where maybe later on, at the end of this year, the PC will get uh, the Rise release
Yeah,
and the Stories 2 release.
yeah. I don't know if they're gonna be released at the same time or maybe there will be some sort of exclusivity for a short period of time.
Yeah, timed exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last little bit to bring up is there is pre-order bonuses that are going on for this. It
Okay.
is cosmetic stuff.
Good.
So the pre-order bonus pack, and I'm not sure which places are offering this. I know that GameStop is one place that's offering this. I'm assuming it's the case for Best Buy and other retailers. Where, let's see here, you get a Palamute Golden Retriever costume as a layered armor. And then you're getting a Palico Forest Cat costume. So both of them, it doesn't. There's no armor there. It's just a skin essentially where where your Palamute no longer looks like that sort of bluish purple uh, dog. Instead, it looks like a golden retriever with a little bandana handkerchief type thing. And the Palico, instead of being sort of this anthropomorphic cat, is looks more like a regular cat with like big furry cheeks. They both look so cute, just so cute. And then the last thing you get is you get a stat boosting novice talisman. And yeah, I guess you could kind of consider that as a gameplay enhancing type thing and not a cosmetic, but the items is your progression, and this is just an early game item, and you're going to replace it very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just helping you out initially, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I cannot wait. Obviously we're going to be getting more information beforehand. Um, but I think playing that demo a second time will really, really help me out because man, it really was. There was a lot going on. There was so much going on, and like I had said, every weapon plays so differently, and some are more difficult to kind of grasp than others. So maybe trying to find whatever one works for me and just kind of sticking with it for a little bit is my
Yeah.
best thing to do. But you just got to get to it. Just got to get it.
Yeah. And I actually might, I sort of, I think it was the video that they're showing off on that thing, the charge blade. I might change it up. I started with a lance, then I went to gun lance territory for a while. Now I might just change it up again and go to that charge blade because that charge blade looks very interesting.
Is that
It
a
kind of
new?
reminds me
Is that a new weapon?
of it's new-ish.
Okay, it's
Um,
not new to like this game, right?
yeah, not new to this one. I think the newest ones is the insect glaive. I think is probably one of the newest ones. The insect glaive and maybe the bow. Certainly the insect glaive. Maybe the charge blade is also a relatively new one, but I would say the insect glaive is the newest one that I can think of.
Okay. Oh, and you didn't mention the voiceover options. Those are always important. So you have English, Japanese, and Monster Hunter language,
I
whatever
wonder
that
what the
is.
Monster Hunter language sounds like.
I
I
don't
might
know.
try that.
I
The
don't
English is
know.
weird.
Is it?
Well, I mean, you played it in a demo, right? They're just doing
Yeah,
shout outs, stuff like that.
it's all weird. Whether they shout it out in a language I can understand or don't understand.
Well, just playing Monster Hunter games, like typically it's mostly grunts that your character says, and now that they're actually saying like
W-
actual things,
Phrases and
oh,
words.
well, sometimes they said some phrase. What was it like? So tasty was a thing in early Monster Hunter games where you get the perfect sort of cook, the well done cook on a steak when
Ah,
you're grilling
yes.
it.
Okay.
That character's like, ooh, tasty, and they hold the meat in the air and it sparkles. It's
Ah,
great.
it's like a shiny Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We'll be dealing with that in a little bit on this Friday. We'll be playing that new demo for sure. But
Oh,
moving on, the Nintendo Switch has turned 4. I cannot believe it has been 4 years. Happy birthday, Nintendo Switch. And to say that it's like an RPG machine would be like a complete like understatement, right? I think there are over 800 RPGs tagged on the eShop. It's ridiculous. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
but I did want to go over, and we might change over the order here. Um, that we have it here on our list. I think we're gonna save the our favorite RPGs for last. What we're gonna do is we're gonna give you 4 different categories of things. Of 4 favorite RPGs on the Switch, 4 disappointments on the Nintendo Switch, 4 games that we still have yet to play that are on the Switch, and then 4 games we're looking forward to. So we're going to do 4 different categories, and we're going to choose 4 games in each of these categories. There's 4s everywhere. 4s are everywhere. So we're going to go with our 4 disappointments.
Should we do the fave before the looking forward to? So put that at number 3.
Sure.
Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'll be fine. So we're going to go disappointments, still need to play, favorites, and then looking forward to.
Yep.
So our 4 disappointments on the Nintendo Switch. I think you generally hate all games on the Nintendo Switch, so this list had to be condensed to 4.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think just run down your list.
Yeah, and these disappointments, they're not necessarily saying that the games are bad. It's
Yeah.
it's saying that our expectations were not met, and were not met to the degree that it led to significant disappointment.
Now, when you
In
say our expectations, I want you to really personalize that. Okay.
yeah,
Your
my expectations for
yes.
my 4, your expectations for your 4, etc.
Yeah.
And so for me, it starts with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I wanted to get that game on Switch so badly, and then it came out, and Digital Foundry and other people did their little tear down on the performance of it, and it was not up to snuff for a while on Switch, and I had to
Yeah.
bite the bullet and get it on PS4, and I absolutely love the game, but man, would I have preferred to play that on the Switch to relive, the Castlevania days of yore,
Yeah.
and that was a definite disappointment for
Yeah,
me.
I will say I'm there right there with you. That launch for that game on the Switch was atrocious. There were so many frame rate issues. There were input lag. there was there was so much wrong with the game. And also the resolution was absolutely terrible. But they did improve it. If you were to go back and play it, they did improve it tremendously. Actually, I think there are some crashes occasionally, but it's better. It is better. But yeah, it was a rough one.
Do you want to list off one of your disappointments?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna go Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. This game was put on a pedestal by many people, uh, including yourself. um, and I was so looking forward to this. I purchased like the collector's edition. And you're gonna notice a trend here. I purchased the collector's edition. In fact, I imported the collector's edition from the UK. So I got the record, right? So I spent quite a decent amount of money on this. I mean, I'm a collector anyway, so I wanted to get it regardless. But yeah, anyway, I had a hard time playing the game, and I think a lot of it was the combat itself was just did not click with me. I could not get it, especially when you need to when position matters, and I've gone over this a bunch of time. When your position matters and you have to change your art to select the one that's in like your current position, and the enemy moves, so you're out of position. So you like it just was, I don't know. Maybe I had to change the button mappings or something. It was so frustrating to play in terms of combat. I just couldn't play it. I couldn't. I moved on from that game so quickly. I just couldn't stick with it. I couldn't do it. And that's that.
Um, so another one of my disappointments was Trials of Mana,
Yeah.
and that was, I mean, there was, and you got it, you played it, and for me, I was expecting, because it was a full remake.
Yeah.
This was not, and they had a lot of opportunity to sort of really change things up. And one of the there was a bunch of stuff that let me down, but like one of the very earliest things that I remember that started to lead me down the road of disappointment was the lack of multiplayer co-op multiplayer in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow for you anyways. That aspect didn't really bother me because I don't have anyone else to play with. So, that really didn't affect me, but I can see if if you're in a household where maybe other people are gonna play with you, if they're like couch co-op type of thing, or even like a Nintendo online or multiplayer aspect, like an online aspect of it, probably would have been more feasible, I think, in terms of development. Having a kind of a couch co-op situation the way they did it wouldn't have worked out. But yeah, I could see that being a drawback for sure. Next on my list, I have Pillars of Eternity. Another one of those games that people tout so much in terms of story and narrative. Maybe on other consoles, but on the Switch, that game still doesn't run at all. I think the uh the the real time with pause in general just doesn't work on console. It works tremendously well on PC, but you bring that over the console, it doesn't work. But in terms of what it had to offer for the Switch, it looked gross. It was a buggy mess, and the developers have been very slow in getting patches over. They have been, but man, it is so slow, that process. Um, what else did I? Yeah, the game would continuously crash. I don't know how it stands now, but this doesn't bode well for Pillars of Eternity 2, which was announced, I don't know, 5 years ago. Before, no, it was announced a while ago. So it doesn't bode well for Pillars of Eternity 2,
Which is out already,
which is out on other consoles, just not on the Switch. So
like 2 years ago or 3 years
yeah,
ago.
so I don't know if I'm gonna be jumping in on Pillars of Eternity 2 when it comes out on the Switch, because of Pillars of Eternity was just a horrifying mess. So yeah,
That's unfortunate.
yeah, that was a big one for me.
That a very recent big disappointment for me is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity.
What?
It's really the I was expecting more from the story, and I was definitely let down there in a story that is not canon whatsoever and was essentially paint by numbers, very safe, very tropey. Did not like it. At all for that aspect. And then it also had the performance issues. And after a certain point, the gameplay that is there got incredibly monotonous with how it's really the enemy variety that made it monotonous. And in that, pretty much all the larger enemies you engage in pretty much the same way. So
Yeah.
if the game was shorter, it probably wouldn't have irked me as much, but it's really the letdown of that story and the performance of the game. Those are the two major ones that definitely let me down from an otherwise uh, what could have been a very fun, or it still was fun, just very solid, awesome experience that sort of I guess honors the prestige of Zelda, and kind of didn't really do that. It didn't flub it.
Yeah.
It just lived up to Breath of the Wild.
Right. Yeah, I kind of didn't mind the non-canonical story. Canonical. I didn't mind
Canonical.
canonical, that word. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that at all. The frame rate issues in when there were a lot of enemies, I could see how that would bother you
It was all the time.
all the time.
It didn't even need enemies. That frame rate was just terrible, nonstop. And then the resolution would also drop, and things would get a little blurry.
Yeah.
So
See, I find it strange that you give it negative points, I guess, in your book for that game, but in another game, it doesn't affect it at all.
well, because that Age of Calamity is a very action intensive game where where your movement and what you're doing matters to a
Okay.
significant degree, and the frame rate really does drop to awful numbers, like Nintendo 64 levels
No
of
way.
frame
I
rate.
didn't have that experience.
Oh, it definitely happens
Maybe
multiple
it's
times.
my new Super Switch. Maybe that's
Oh,
why.
yeah, maybe. So what else disappointed you?
Oh man. I was so looking forward to this game. I played this game on the Xbox. It runs and visually looks stunning, but you put this same game on a Nintendo Switch and it looks like someone smeared Vaseline over your entire screen
Oh man.
and just like really laggy, but just visually just looks so blurry that it hurts your eyeballs. This game is Mutant Year Zero. I don't know if you've played it or heard about it,
I have.
but it's a tactical RPG, and I love the character design in it, but you can't even see it on the Switch. Like you see it on any other console, any other like PC, whatever. You can see the character designs, the models, they're very interesting. But you put it on the Switch, you can't even tell what the heck is going on. You can't even tell. It is so bad. Um, but I so wanted to like it and enjoy it. It is a good game. It's a short game. Not short, but it's a shorter game, but it just looks so hideous. So hideous. Man,
Yeah,
makes me sad.
that's unfortunate. You know what makes me sad? Really sad. Perhaps the saddest out of all the games I've already was disappointed and mentioned is Paper Mario: The Origami King. I
I,
was hyped for this.
I'm really surprised at this because I'll just say you enjoyed it more than I did.
Oh, I didn't even get it.
I
I
thought
didn't
you
even
did.
no, I
Oh, okay.
because it I was waiting for the reviews because I don't like going into games blind unless it's like Metroid or something like that. Then I'll go in very blind. But yeah, I was hoping it was a return to Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, sort of tried and true RPG, like true excellence in RPG mechanics type of Paper Mario experience, and it it didn't even come close to going all the way. It went a little bit, but then just started doing a whole bunch of other stuff, and it just wasn't the full experience I wanted. It had everything else in there though. It had the visuals were glorious, and the audio and the comedy and the
Right.
humor were all there. They just didn't land the gameplay. Not really land, but they didn't bring the gameplay that I wanted, or
Yeah.
they didn't bring it all the way.
Yeah. They definitely were trying something new. That's for certain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a sad one because I think
It
everyone wanted that 1,000 year door experience,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not what it was.
It could have been. It wasn't that far away, but it was far enough away to make me very disappointed.
It could have been, but you know what, Johnny? It should have been.
It should have. Yeah, I agree. It should have.
I think what they were trying to do is just bring in a new target audience, and and it hit the mark for us. That's what I think. Last disappointment. We're hitting them good. We're
Yeah.
hitting them good. My last disappointment is Octopath Traveler, and I think this is a very polarizing game, right? I think you're full on in or you're full on out with this game. I don't know that anyone's really in between, unless you're in between.
I'm definitely in between. I just don't think that anyone is full in on this. Like, there's
Oh,
nothing in the game that that would put it on your top tier echelon
I
of games of all time because
I think
it's doing everything else.
I think you're very wrong in that. I think there are a lot of people full on in um on Octopath Traveler, and I guess I can see why. Okay, it does have, amazing visuals. Okay, it does have amazing music. The composer is it does have amazing that, but the battle system is not for me. Okay, the 8 different narratives is not for me. The party members being not even party members, they don't interact with one another. I just it's just having the 8 different stories is just, man, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Having these party members being acting like total strangers in a game just makes no sense to me. They're fighting alongside each other and they barely acknowledge one another's existence.
I I was a bit more okay with that. It was really the writing and pacing of the game that definitely didn't uh, that let me down for certain. But I wasn't expecting, because I mean, when you look at the game, like, it's going to give you gameplay wise, it's going to give you traditional JRPG experience.
Mhm.
That's what it's selling all the way through. And there's never, the traditional JRPG experience has been done for 30, 35, who knows how many years. It's been done for so long. Like, it is traditional as traditional can be. We've done it so many times. And yeah, the battle system has its own unique twist on it. And I actually enjoy the battle system of it. That little sort of figuring out
The
the
break.
enemy, yeah, the break system. It's interesting. It gets the job done, but is it spectacular? No. And I wasn't expecting spectacularness from it, but uh, yeah, it was definitely a disappointment for me. It just wasn't the biggest disappointment for
And
me.
then out of the 8 characters, maybe 2 of the storylines were interesting. The others were kind of forgettable. So
That
it
was
wasn't really worth playing those other as or following through with those other characters. Or just wasn't.
Yeah, the stories were just throwaway. Almost all of them were throwaway.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. I when people when I see when I belong in a few Facebook groups, right? And you get the always the generic question. All right, which RPG should I play? And I would say half of them are Octopath Traveler. And and I just want to say, just reply to every single one of them. No, 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 no. Because, I mean, yeah, it looks stunning. It's not good, man. I don't know. Just not do
Oh,
it for me.
when Octopath Traveler is one of 2 RPGs you've played on Switch, of course you're going to recommend it.
Yeah, I just think there are better experiences other than Octopath Traveler. But anyway, so which one are we moving on to? We're moving on to 4 games that we still need to play, that we
Yeah.
haven't yet played. We've had 4 years on most of these. Well, not most of these, but yeah. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I watched my lady partner go through that
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
almost entirely, but there's that extra prologue,
Hmm.
whatever, the extra content that I definitely want to dive into, and I just haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it because I can jump into it right away. And man, that game looks so good, and the story is just rewatching it, and how well done this sort of almost remake is, this major HD remastering of the game is. Like, it's incredible. And it still holds up to a good degree, not as much as Xenoblade 2, right? It's still an older game with older mechanics in there, but it is spectacular just watching that again, and I can't wait to when I get the time to dive into
Yeah.
that extra content.
Maybe I just need to. I don't know. I have no idea about that one.
Oh,
Um,
what is on your chopping block?
my chopping block, Dragon Quest 11. I really want to get into it. I know a ton of people who have played it, absolutely love it. There's a major problem. It's a massive time sink. So yeah, when I get enough time to finally play Dragon Quest 11, it's there. I have it. I own all these games.
And
Just
you
need
already played through what, the first 10 hours?
Yeah, about that. About that.
And from my brother who played and beat it, it doesn't get good at all until like 50 hours, like halfway into the game. Then it finally gets good.
Great. Can't wait.
And then from that moment forward, it gets really good. And
Yeah, it's just
he really
then you
I
have
love that
another
game.
then you have another 50 hours to go
Yeah, yeah, or more,
or more. Yeah,
or more.
that's what I mean. It's like I know it's a fantastic game. I just need a billion hours to of time, which is not possible sometimes. Anyways, what else you got?
Yeah, and this is the same thing, right? It's a fantastic game. It's called Dragon's Dogma
Yeah.
Dark Arisen, right?
uh
Dark Dark
Darker
Arisen.
Darker Risen, yep.
Yeah. And it's a game that I've had on my wish list for so long. And you played it. You definitely recommend it. It's a game that I want to play, and it goes on sale all the time.
Oh yeah, it's all the time.
And you can get it for like I think it's either like $15, right around that, when it
Physically
hits those
too.
sales. And man, I I keep looking. I'm like, should I get it? Should I get it? It's just a matter of time. Like, do I have the time to play and invest in it? And that's what's really holding me back. I
Yeah.
want to play it because it looks really cool. It seems like it has a little bit of that Dark Soulsy influence in there to a certain degree. A little bit of Monster Hunterness in there, where you're combating monsters and jumping on them and grabbing onto them and stabbing them and stuff like that.
A little bit of The Witcher 3. I will say that it does combat better than The Witcher 3. That's for certain.
Yeah, so that's on my list. I don't know if I'll actually end up getting to it, but it's been on my wish list. This is like one of the games that's been on my wish list for a very long time. So it's either going to remain on there, or I'll eventually bite the bullet and get it on one of those mini sales that it goes on.
Yeah, right now it's $30, but it has been on sale in the eShop for 15 many times. I say just wait a little bit, it'll be there. It'll be there for you. All right, what is next for me is another one. This game's been out for a long while. Is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. I want to get it. I know. I mean, I know it's scored reasonably well in terms of Ys games. They all generally do reasonably well.
Yeah.
It's just again, it's just the time to do it. I've been wanting to play a game like Ys, an action RPG for a while. I just need to get to it. That's it.
Yeah.
Just time. If we could all just have a little bit more time left on this planet to play games, that'd be great.
And I think it doesn't help that the Yisei hasn't really hit any major sales, right?
You know, you say that, and I have it digitally. It's one of the few games that in this list, anyways, that I don't have physically, and it's consistently full price. I have yet to see it go down at all. So it's even digitally. I want to say digitally, it's. I've seen it go down to recently. It was down to $30, and it hasn't been that in a while. So
Yeah.
that'll be next.
Mm. The next game for me is kind of similar to the next game or two for you. Do you want to like cover these together?
Let's do that together. Well, okay. So for my next two, it's Atelier Ryza 1 and 2.
Yeah, and for mine, I just put two because it's the newer one and it looks like the more impressive, bigger bells and whistles
Yeah.
iteration on it.
I know with Atelier Ryza 2, it's more expansive in terms of the environment. Atelier Ryza 1, she's just in a small town pretty much the entire time. Everything is really kind of focused on that. Where in 2, she's kind of moving up, moving out of the world, that sort of stuff. So it brings in a lot of different narrative choices and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, I think the combat's cool. The alchemy component is really, really cool. A lot of crafting, that sort of stuff. and I think visually it looks interesting. The one thing I have against it, and maybe that's why I haven't picked it up, or not picked up, maybe why I haven't jumped into it, is for some reason the voiceover is kind of grating. It really kind of bothers me a little bit. So I think I just need to get past that, and I think I'll be okay. But it is definitely something I've been interested in playing for quite a while now.
Yeah. I tell you, Rise of 2, it just looks like a very solid
Yeah,
uh, experience, kind of like Yeast 8, right? It's
yeah,
like one of those that are just solid, both 1 and 2, scored uh, it, well enough, and where Yeast 8 is on the action RPG side of things,
hmm
Atelier is on the turn-based side of things. So it's yeah. So need to get around to that. And then the last one, that's my fourth pick, is Final Fantasy 12: The Zodiac Age. And that's one, it typically I'm not keen on Final Fantasy games, but after going through last year, that sort of lineup of Yasumi Matsuno games that he's made, the Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics,
yeah,
uh, and Vagrant Story. Just going through those games. This is another one of his games that he made, that or directed and wrote to a significant degree. So I think I gotta play it and get through it. And I saw my brother play it and go through it. There's definitely some dated gameplay in there,
yeah.
but he said storyline wise, it's very different from the other Final Fantasies. He says it's very well done. So
Not just storyline wise. I mean, this is where they broke their own mold in terms of combat, right? So they
yeah,
they were strictly turn based for for a very long time, and then this is what action time combat or
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think yeah,
It's sort of like a hybrid of the two. It's hard to peg whether it's action combat system or a turn-based combat system. It's sort of very in betweeny. It's very similar. They borrowed a lot of elements of Vagrant Story's combat system. That design of it, they borrowed elements from that and incorporated that into the Zodiac or Final Fantasy 12. So yeah, that out of all the games I have lined up here, that's probably that one and Xenoblade, the extra stuff on Xenoblade Definitive Edition. Those two are probably the two most likely, with Final Fantasy 12 probably being the most likely for me to get through on my need to play list.
yeah. Final Fantasy 12. I although I never beat it, completed it. It's a really good game. I think probably underrated, to be honest with you. All right, cool. Now we have games that were maybe. Did you want to do looking forward to or favorites?
It's up to you.
Let's do favorites.
All right.
Do it. Now,
So you,
now, I'm sorry. Before we go on, these are very subjective, right? These are subjective picks. These are not what we think are the best. If that makes any sense, these are very subjective picks. And you'll notice that with my picks, for certain. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
so uh, for my four favorites for celebrating the 4 years of the Switch, my four favorite RPGs. I mean, number one, I would.
We're going in order here.
Oh, for me, I'm going in order
All
because
right.
my absolute number one is pretty easy. I mean, there's no question. Nothing even comes close to it. It's Breath of the Wild. That game is absolutely incredible.
That's debatable. It's debatable.
There's no other game like it. Uh, that sort of hit the nail on the head on all those elements. So I'm just gonna say that everyone knows my opinion of Breath of the Wild at this point, but that is definitely my number one favorite.
Yeah.
Of the bunch of favorites, but it's such a memorable experience. There, how about that?
Man, you went right to number one, huh? What happened to building this up?
Yeah,
Anyway,
well, that to me wasn't really a surprise, so I just felt like
it
throwing
is
it
a
out there.
surprise. I mean, if it were an RPG, it might be on my list, but it's not. All right, so my I'm going 4 through 1. Number 1 being the last one.
Okay.
Um, okay. Number 4 is Battle Chasers Night War. Battle Chasers is probably my, I want to say this is my initial, because I want to say this was fairly early in the Nintendo Switch. I'd have to look that up, but it's just one of my earliest memories, aside from Breath of the Wild, of playing an RPG on the Switch. It's a turn-based game, done. Oh shoot, what the heck is the name of that company that does it? Man, now I can't remember. I gotta look it up now.
Oh.
But they did Darksiders Genesis. Airships in the game. My goodness, I don't know why I could not think of that. Anyways, it's a turn-based game. It's done in the same. It's done in a graphic novel kind of aesthetic. At least the combat is. The turn-based is it's very straightforward, but the visually it just looks really cool. It does have a point in the game where there's a very big difficulty spike. But anyways, other than that, I think the game is really kind of good. Kind of my comfort food. It was just good. And I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh.
And that's all I got to say about that.
So another one of my top favorites uh, on the Switch, hands down, and I've talked about this game many, many times, is Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yes.
It's just absolutely incredible. It made me cry twice, which doesn't happen on games. It just hit me with some very emotional moments for at certain parts of the game, and just incredible experience. Some of the best music in gaming. Just there's a lot of praise I can give to it, but wow, is that a fantastic RPG? And I strongly recommend that RPG to so many people. Just whenever I possibly can. If you haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, give it a shot,
Yeah.
and you will not be disappointed because that game is well done throughout. Just
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, it does have its moments where the resolution and the frame rate really kind of dip kind of low, but it does. This game is also on my list as well. That does not bother me one iota in this game. I absolutely love the combat and the way that it's brought on, in terms of how the game just kind of naturally progresses.
It, it
Absolutely love
layers
the
it
combat.
on.
Yeah, it just brings it all on, and then at the end, it's just once once you're accustomed to that combat, it feels like I'm almost playing a rhythm game. It's just that smooth, and it's like a dance. And man, I just absolutely love the narrative in the game. I love the combat in the game. The music is good. It's visually really really good. Just everything about it is freaking phenomenal. Really really good. So yeah, that was also like I said on my list. So I guess I goes right back to you.
Oh, all right. This one is also kind of a no-brainer. I've talked about this at length with you on prior episodes. Just Fire Emblem Three Houses. It is, and I'm a big Fire Emblem fan ever since they started bringing Fire Emblem here to the States. I've gotten almost every single one of them and played and beat them. And this is the Fire Emblem that came out, and I went through it, and I going through it, and it didn't even take that long, I realized, like, oh, no one should ever play any of the prior Fire Emblems. They should just play this one
Hmm.
because this one is so much better than all the prior Fire Emblems that it kind of makes them null and void.
Wow.
it just it just it just makes it just improves on the gameplay experience and the overall presentation and the overall experience of what Fire Emblem could be. And it just says, here you go, and you play this one, and you're never going to have a need to go back to earlier Fire Emblems
Right.
and play them. Maybe for storyline stuff, but other than that, this one's going to give you the best bang for your buck, both on storytelling, on gameplay. It doesn't really uh, change the formula up too much. Fire Emblem is a bit reserved on sort of battle and gameplay mechanics, but it
Yep.
does offer enough different stuff, especially with the Gambit stuff, that it changes up the formula a pretty good amount. And then you just get the sort of grandiose maturity that's thrown in there, and then the immersion. That
Yeah.
whole sort of Hogwarts castle, being the teacher of a bunch of practitioners of magic and soldiers, that whole Harry Potter sort of aspect of Three Houses just really seals the deal
Hmm.
in there, and it sells that. And I don't think there's ever going to be a Harry Potter game that's going to be better than the Harry Potter experience of Fire Emblem. And there is a Harry Potter game coming out.
Yeah, maybe eventually. Who knows?
No, there
Uh,
is. They announced it.
no, I know,
Fighting
but
game.
I think they're having problems with it. Directors,
Oh,
like people are leaving. Is just there's a lot of issues.
yeah.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Three Houses. I put a lot of time into it. Not nearly as much as you did. Um, but yeah, very good, solid game. But not as good or solid as Golf Story. Sorry, Golf Story is man. I tell you, I had so much fun with Golf Story that like there are some kind of like when you're playing the disc golf that kind of and when you're controlling the drone in the game gets really tedious. But other than that, the writing is freaking hilarious. The RPG situations or like the situations that you're put into to figure out how to golf your way out of things is so freaking good and so well thought out and done that this is one that should everyone should play. Regardless if you're a fan of golf or not, you should be playing Golf Story. It is such a good and well done game. Pixel art, um, art style never gets old. Classic,
How's the
classic game.
length on it?
It's fairly lengthy. It's about 20 hours or so. I'd
'Cause
have
I
to,
have that. I just never ended up playing it. That's on one of those on my to-do list.
yeah, that you should be playing that game. Main story is I'm just looking it up is 15 to 20 hours. So
Yeah. That's a good experience right there.
yeah, very doable, and I can't wait to see what they have with Sports Story, where they're just gonna combine everything. I don't know. It looks like they're mixing sports. It looks really interesting. So yeah, Golf Story. It's a good one. It's a good one. What do you got? What else you got?
All right. So for my fourth uh little pick here of favorite Switch RPGs, and this one some people might it might be on sort of the edge of RPG, but it's definitely an RPG when you play. I mean, Astral Chain is, oh man, that game is incredible, absolutely incredible. It's just such a fun, awesome romp, and has the immersion experiences and storytelling experiences and sort of nuanced character development that you typically expect in RPGs. It has that, and it also has the over the top Hollywood blockbuster action experiences and sequences. It also has that as well, and it's just an incredible romp. Just across the board, there's multiple ways that you can sort of play through it. There's the story, the whole story experience of it, which is actually kind of moving at times. Going through it, it's nothing too crazy, but it's not a bad story. It's actually an interesting enough story that definitely gets you through it. You do get invested in the elements that are going there, and there's enough curveballs to make you think like, oh, that's actually happening. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
weird. And then it also gives you the whole, you are a cop, you're walking the beat, you're picking up trash in the city and all that stuff. So it's the detective police officer RPG action RPG experience that that yeah, kind of never knew you wanted, and
Yeah,
that's what Astral Chain is.
I still need to play through that one. I think I think I wasn't able to put much time into it, but it's one of those games that we talked about earlier that are visually just stunning. You know, it just
Yeah.
looks so good. The combat is well thought out, well done. And it also kind of layers that combat as you progress. So,
Yep.
um
In a very big way. There's 5 different chimeras, and each chimera is a very different move set and has different abilities, and you unlock that as you go, nice and slow. Then each of those chimeras have their own skill trees that you
mhm,
can flesh out, and yeah, there's a lot of depth into the game that even when you beat it, there's still more to do in there, and it gives you more to do after you beat the game itself. You can go back to earlier segments and sort of get a better score
okay.
on different missions, and just being in the world is interesting, and talking
Yeah.
to the NPCs and doing like little side quests and stuff like that. It's just fun,
Yeah.
just silly but serious, just fun romp.
Yeah. I'll get to it at some point, and it's not terribly long. I think it's like 20 or 30 hours or something like that.
I would put it in the 30-hour range.
Yeah.
20. I mean, you definitely could beat it in less than 20, but you'd have to get into like speedy territory if you're beating it in 20 hours.
Who wants to
A
do
little
that?
speedy. Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this game. Um, this game, I've talked about it a bajillion times. It's one of my favorite RPGs ever. Never mind that it's on the Switch now. Divinity Original Sin 2. I absolutely adore this game. I've played through it 3 times. It's one of the very few games that I've played multiple times, and every time it's different. You know, you can have so many different builds and play styles. It's just, man, the story is. I wish the story was a little bit better. But either way, it's such a good. I love the combat in the game. It's a strategy again, tactical RPG with with a lot of nuance. I think there's a lot of nuance there. Oh man, such a lovely game. The voice acting is done really well. It runs really well on the Switch, phenomenally well considering what it's coming from. You know, it comes from the PC world initially, and then onto console, and then ported over to the Switch. It's just such a good game, amazing game.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with recommending Divinity Original Sin 2 to anyone is that you have to be kind of it is a challenging game, especially at first. I think that deters a lot of people. Also, the style of game, right? It's a not everybody's into the tactical RPGs, but I consider it almost like a turn based RPG more than a tactical RPG. But either way, okay, that is our favorite Nintendo Switch RPGs. Now,
Our 4 favorite.
4 favorites.
Mhm.
Now we look into the futures. We're looking into the future. Some really close future and some very distant
Very distant.
future. Who knows? Maybe these games will be on like a Super Switch or Super Nintendo Switch or whatever it's called, the new
Yep.
iteration. Not new iteration, not but like kind of interim model, whatever you want to call it.
So
Like they did with the 3DS, like the new 3DS.
and this is where the hype factor kicks in real good, because these are the 4 games that each of us individually are
Yeah.
looking forward to the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some overlap. I mean, I'm excited with some of the games that you're coming out with, and you may or may not even understand the games that I'm coming out with here. But I think there's definitely some overlap here. But let's hit your list.
All right, so surprise, surprise, and this is a very recent one that's coming out very, very soon, and we just talked about it. It's Monster Hunter Rise. I am totally looking forward to this. I am so excited. Just I love the Monster Hunter series, and this one, just from playing the demo, seeing what they've just from the very first reveal that they did last year, that was enough for me
Yep.
to really sell me on it because it definitely I recognized that there was some unique stuff going on there with the weird wire bug stuff that I didn't really understand and how they were doing that. And I'm like, oh, that's different. That looks
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally on board, ready to hunt some monsters. And they weren't cutting any corners with this one. So it's a full blown chock full, just
Yeah.
stuffed.
Not only are they not cutting corners, they're like piling on. Like there's just a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
This is gonna be like a 200-hour romp. I can already tell. I'm gonna dump so much time into Monster Hunter Rise.
No,
So
and
that's
what's
fine.
great about it is it can be brought anywhere, whereas before you were tied to like not before, but like with Monster Hunter World, you were tied to you're
That
tethered to the wall basically.
that is a very good point. So other Monster Hunter games have been on systems where you can sort of do the wireless local co-op, being on portables and whatnot. And Monster Hunter World, as you said, it didn't offer that sort of local co-op play. But with Rise and the nature of the Switch, that is back.
Yeah,
So you can actually do, and I have done in the past, basically Monster Hunter LAN parties,
yeah,
and I am totally down for making that happen again.
yeah. That could definitely be a thing. Definitely be a thing. Jumping on top of the Monster Hunter bandwagon, I have Monster Hunter Story 2. We've kind of went over it previously in this episode, but I mean the game visually looks good. Okay, not only that, it looks more like an adult, not adult themed, but not as geared towards a younger audience. It looks like it's geared towards a maybe a broader audience, a more general audience, and I think it looks like it's gonna be a solid game. I'm really, really kind of excited for it. So, and again, it might be just the hype that Capcom's been kind of jamming down our throats, but it does look like it's going to be good.
Yep.
What else
So
you got?
so the next one I'm looking forward to, and this is purely based on, so this is a sequel to a game that has been dormant. I didn't even realize it was a franchise. And this game, the original game, excellent. It's The World Ends With You.
Yep.
When it released on the DS, and they announced not too long ago the 3D sequel of Neo, The World Ends With You, and I cannot wait. There's it's They're taking things very differently because The World Ends With You was very heavily based on the touch controls
Yeah.
that it incorporated, especially in the combat, and the nature of the DS with the dual screen setup. It also utilized a lot of that. So they're gonna have to change things up on Neo. To but I'm excited for it because the first game was so good, and this is an opportunity to develop another world, the World Ends With You experience from the ground up for the system that it is poised to be released on. So I'm excited for it. I'm cautious, definitely cautious on this one, but this is one I will be eyeballing.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they'll bring in a new aspect um to the game, like for example, like you had mentioned the touch controls. Maybe they'll bring in more motion stuff or like something else.
The combat system's already, from what they've shown, it's already completely different.
Yeah.
uh, where the original was side scroll and you swiped across the screen in order
Okay.
to engage in combat. And on this one, it's a 3D third person 3D. I'm guessing the camera might be mapped to the right stick kind of thing. So uh, it's more of an arena type of 3D environment that you're engaging in combat. So that alone just makes it very, very different.
Yeah, it's more traditional, not traditional in sense of what they typically do or have done. All right, cool. Uh, I mentioned Golf Story as being one of my favorites. I have to be looking forward to Sports Story, right? Gotta be,
Yeah.
right? And I do have a feeling it's coming out this year. I really have a strong feeling about that. Now, I think again, I think the writing is going to be there. It's going to be it's going to be have witty, smart, funny writing. I think they just got to do the combination mishmash of sports correctly. They're also adding in dungeons at this point. I don't know what that is going to entail, but they're doing dungeons. The music, typically, or what was done in Golf Story, it was okay, kind of fanfare type of stuff. Really, kind of what you would think would be traditional golf music, if that makes any sense at all. Really, nothing fantastical in that aspect. But I'm interested in seeing what situations they put you in, because that's generally what the golf story is, just like the situations. It was really kind of good, kind of funny. So yeah, Sports Story coming out soon.
Yeah. So another one I am looking forward to is I see. And this one isn't even the I hope it isn't the final name.
Oh God,
It's
no.
Project Triangle Strategy. Just a terrible, terrible project name, but it's a project. It's a working title. Hopefully, working is the key. And they're gonna change it up to something. But
It's the name of the game is just like so on the nose. It's like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, we got the three stories. Triangle. All right, it's a strategy game. Triangle strategy. That's the name. Like,
yep. And this is the project we're working on. So there we
yeah.
go. Yeah.
Oh God.
But playing through the demo, and I guess the demo is like it might be leaning on proof of concept type of territory. I don't know because they've got a story in there.
Yeah.
It's there, and it seems like it's an excerpt from some early middling type of chapter. What was it? It was like chapter 6 and 7.
Right.
The demo was, or something like that. So that is interesting. The way it plays out seems like it's going to play out a bit more. The sort of the meta, the flow of the meta game is probably going to be on the lines of Fire Emblem, where
Mhm.
you're sort of you're looking at the overworld map and then you're choosing points and then story segments or battle segments or some combination of those happen in there. But there is lots of new and interesting things that are happening in that game, especially with the story, with that whole influencing your party members and making important decisions aspect of things, and having very different, very branching narratives that could potentially occur. All of those things combined with the very interesting combat system that's running on the same sort of graphical praise that we give to Octopath Traveler, that same sort of
Yeah.
Unreal 3 sort of HD 2D graphics that they have going on there. It's very stylistic, looks incredible. I'm guessing it's going to have great music, and it's got tactics style gameplay for the combat system, which is already puts it on an echelon above pretty much all other traditional JRPGs, because you add that extra complexity of movement and positioning on top of the turn-based traditional combat that you get in
Right.
tactics games, that it just adds that extra nuance. And I just that's what makes that genre, that tactical strategy RPG type of genre, just so fun and engaging to play.
Mhm.
So it's got all the things there to
Right.
really make it fantastic. So I just can't wait for that one. Hopefully they do well by it and they don't octopath it.
Oh, please no. I have a feeling like I think they said 2022 for a release window, I guess. I
Yeah,
I, I
and
think
that makes sense.
I think it might be early 2022. I feel like this game is a lot more polished than just having a first demo out like this. Unless they
Mhm.
drastically change things, which I don't feel like they need to drastically change things. So, who knows? I
Yeah,
guess based on those surveys, right, that they get.
yeah, could it there was bugs in there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. But I mean, that stuff can be, is more easily fixed than, reinventing the entire game or the wheel or of sorts, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
One thing I think, now you mentioned Fire Emblem, the one huge difference that I will prefer triangle strategy, whatever it is are the relationships you build are not on a intimate level, I guess you could call it. They're more on a kind of objective level. Do you know what I mean? Where you're building relationships in triangle strategy, it seems anyways that you're building those relationships to further advance a cause or of some sort, that sort of thing.
yeah. It's more, I would say, less relationship and more about influence.
Influence or politics or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, politics. Yep.
Yeah. Very, very cool. I also can't will not wait for that game. I want that game here so badly. All right, next on my list I have Eastward. Eastward is again, it's another pixel art game, but it's done with dynamic lighting, which I absolutely love when they introduce these things into pixel art. Again, Octopath does it, Triangle Strategy does it. There are a few others that do it as well. I think it just adds that extra little something to pixel art games that is makes it refreshing. Um, but Eastward it's an action RPG. Seems like it's fairly straightforward. I was able to play a little bit on. There was like a Steam event or summer thing where they released a demo for it, and yeah, it's a fairly straightforward action RPG, and yeah, the music for it is really really good in what they do. Take a look at. I'm going to do a little self promotion here. I did do a spotlight video, and Joel Korolitz, he's the composer. He was the composer for Death Stranding as well. So he also did I'm sorry, Eastward. So the soundtrack for it is actually really good as well. And it's really inspired by a lot of the anime that you see out there. Specifically, shoot, what the heck is that name? It's escaping me. Anyway, it looks really cool. I think visually it looks really really good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it does.
and I have a feeling it's coming out this year as well.
Yeah, they announced that about a year ago, maybe longer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a studio in China. It's a Chinese developed game, and they were hardest hit, I guess, for this the sickness that we recently are dealing with worldwide. And in particular, this studio is really hit hard because they ended up having to move a lot of their stuff. They just had to deal with a lot of different stuff, so the game was just delayed for a little bit. But I have a feeling it's coming out this year. So yeah, that's my number three.
Yeah. So the last but not least game that I am looking forward to, and this is a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
better game to look forward to than a sequel to the game that launched on the day of the release of the Switch, and that is Breath of the Wild 2.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, just by the nature of Breath of the Wild being the greatest game ever, you gotta. I mean, it could do better,
It could do worse.
but if it does worse, like you're doing worse than the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still gonna be great, like unless they really flub it. And they've been working on this game for 4 years now, officially 4 years. And by
Right.
the time this releases, we're talking 4 years and certainly more for development time. That is more time that they put into between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And we know they're using the same engine.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's gotta help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are really working hard on this, and I actually think it is not that far off. It could land this year. Could.
So
Not
that
saying
would
it's gonna.
yeah. So that would be 5 years into development. Not five. Yeah, a little over four for
Over four,
sure.
over four, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could land sometime next year. And if it lands next year, then now we're getting into 5 years of development on a game when Breath of the Wild itself was right around that 5 years of development as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, seeing as how they already have an engine and they already have some some degree of semblance on what worked really well for Zelda, and the fact that they're taking this long, it just makes me wonder, like, what are they including in this?
I hope they don't mess around with it too much, though. I I have a feeling they might add some co-op, or not multiplayer, but just co-op with Zelda and Link. I hope they, if they do that, they don't make it so immersion breaking, so kind of like I don't know. I hope it just doesn't ruin the experience, basically, of
It
having the two characters like that.
it could be a mechanic where an AI controls Zelda.
Right, but if
Or
that AI is just not done well, that's where I worry. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, but it could be an AI, and
Hmm.
then there's a switch character button, and then
Yeah,
you hit that button, and now you're constantly flipping, and now the AI you control Zelda, and the AI controls Link, and then it has that sort of hey, someone else has their own switch, they can control,
yeah.
and now you're doing co-op partner style. Uh,
Almost like what they did with Luigi and Luigi's Mansion. You can have that
yes,
sort of
exactly.
gameplay mechanic, you know?
Yep, and that could be the case. I don't know if they would actually go down that route. Having Zelda as being playable, that could be a very real possibility.
Yeah.
But making it to the point of co-op, that part I'm not too certain of. So we'll just wait and see. The one thing I am hoping that they include in this is more of the traditional style dungeons,
Yeah.
but also matching the the sort of evolution and the freedom of the newer style dungeons. So I want the newer style dungeons and how open those dungeons were, the divine beasts, but
Yep.
also making them more bigger, more complex and intricate like the older dungeons, but without the sort of here's the room, solve the puzzle in the room
Yeah.
thing where I want it to be bigger, more grand, so and just more of them, more divine beast dungeons.
You might be asking for too much, Johnny.
I don't know, that last the fifth divine beast was actually kind of getting towards that balance of divine beast and traditional dungeon.
Okay.
So that it was getting closer to that. So I would say more like that, just more dungeons.
So yeah, I think adding more to the complexity of the dungeon would probably be pretty cool. I would accept that. I just don't want them to stray too much from what they have, right? To kind of deter them what from what is a masterpiece, basically. I think in both of our eyes, it's a masterpiece that I just don't want them to take away from that too much.
Yeah, but they got to do something different. Like to go through the same world, that's not going
No,
to work.
no, they can't. I mean, you have this component, right, of now Zelda's here and with you. Do you know what I mean? So that can add, the it's just endless things, you know. Who knows?
Yep, big giant question mark on that. And so now we're down to the last game that you are looking forward to.
Yes, the last game. I am big Path of Exile fan, right? Path of Exile is clearly inspired by Diablo 2. And now we're getting a Diablo 2 remastered game, which may in fact be better than Path of Exile. What am I gonna do?
Just already calling it like it's Diablo 2. It runs exactly the same, except it's literally better looking.
Yeah. Oh man,
And you're already like, sorry, Path of Exile.
I feel so bad. I mean, I put in a lot of time with Path of Exile, so I mean, it's only right that I do, Diablo 2 some justice, right? And put in some time there. Yeah, I cannot wait for Diablo 2. It just looks so good.
Yeah.
It's got the same, it's got the same soundtrack. That's because it was done. so good, and visually, yeah, like I said, it just looks so good. I just can't wait to get into those dungeons and freaking just get loots and man,
and experience good Diablo storytelling.
yeah, at it, right, Diablo 2 storytelling at its best,
Yeah,
basically.
and not get this poorly written, poorly delivered aesthetic that was Diablo 3.
Yeah, a lot of people hate Diablo 3, and I don't mind it. I definitely think it was just more of a simplified version of whatever Diablo 2 was. Um, Definitely strayed away from what they hit out of the park with Diablo 2.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I I think the biggest problem with Diablo 3 was they went too over the top on visual flair and sort of
yeah,
character power, whereas Diablo 2 and definitely 1, it was more grounded and realistic. We're
mm,
talking like Diablo 3 was like high fantasy, and Diablo 2 and 1 were essentially like Dark Souls style low fantasy,
yeah,
like very dark fantasy. But I mean, yeah, Dark Souls is has elements of high fantasy, but Diablo 2, that's still it's very low fantasy. Things were still very physical,
yeah,
and the mysticism and magic were not so extreme.
right. And I'm hoping that they learn from this, and that's what we're gonna see with Diablo 4. Whenever we see that, but
Oh, we've seen it.
yeah, it's just I don't know. Did we see enough of it though?
Yeah, there is a lot. They're still working on it pretty heavily, but yeah, there's a lot of Diablo 4, and they are taking some cues, right? The sort of darker immersion in mood of an atmosphere of Diablo 2, you can definitely see that in Diablo 4. Like they're
Hmm.
definitely paying attention to that aspect. However, when it comes to a more grounded, less powerful feeling, or less power capable characters, the characters still seem, even at low level, they still seem very powerful, a little bit too powerful and too capable. Uh, and that detracts from sort of the fear factor of Diablo 1 and 2, right? It was
Yeah,
scary going down into the dungeons because your character was less capable than what you were in Diablo 3.
right. Yeah, I'm now that I'm actually watching the gameplay trailer of Diablo 4, and yeah, I do remember. I remember changing into them changing into a bear and whatnot. But they definitely. I feel like they've learned from what they did in Diablo 3.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe slightly turning towards what they did in Diablo 2, but not making that full turn there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It does look like in between so far of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. It does look
yeah,
like some hybrid in between of the two, which is good. That's a good direction because yeah, when Diablo 2 did it best, like, and Diablo 3 did it worse, you start heading back towards Diablo 2, and that's what they're doing in Diablo 4. And Diablo 2 Resurrected is getting us a retaste of what made the Diablo franchise so spectacular.
yeah, yeah. And it's including like all the DLC. Like it's got a bunch of stuff. That's another game I cannot wait. Again, join us in the Discord community. We'll be putting some servers up for some multiplayer there as well. Uh, yeah, cannot wait. Can't wait for Diablo
Are
2.
you gonna roll hardcore?
No, no, I fall in love. I fall in love with my characters. I can't. I can't do it.
You can't do
It
it.
it it depends, right? It'll depends. If I really get the flow of it going, I'll make a hardcore character. Like if I feel really confident. I generally don't feel confident in these games. I don't know why.
Hardcore does work in when you're doing multiplayer. It can work pretty well. It also sucks really bad in multiplayer when one party member dies. And now
No,
it's like,
man.
and now they're gone, and you either have to power level their new character all the way up again, or you say sayonara, or everyone rolls new characters.
Yeah, that's so tough, man. That is so tough. Like even seasonal characters, I have a hard time with that as well. I think though they've changed where seasonal characters you can continue to play them as just like a normal character, but you know, I don't know. I just fall in love with my characters. Can't do
I'm with you. I'm with you. All
it.
that whole crew, what was it? It's seven classes, right?
Yeah.
And each one of them just really fun and interesting to play. The assassin was very different from the druid. The druid was very different from the necromancer. The Amazon was very different from the sorceress, and the barbarian was different from all of them. Like just
Yeah. They all
and
have
then
the intricacies.
and then the paladin, just just interesting stuff there because the paladin can essentially heal.
Hmm.
You can do a healing build, which is only really effective in co-op.
In support, yeah.
Uh,
Oh man. So yeah, what did you guys think of our lists? What do you guys think? That's gonna wrap up today's episode of the Switch RPG podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to send in any questions or comments to podcast at switchrpg.com. You can listen to the show each and every week at switchrpg.com, or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast app. If you listen on an app, please give us a rating and review. We want to climb up them charts on those platforms, so your support there would be amazing. And finally, remember, you can head over to switchrpg.com for all your RPG needs on the Nintendo Switch. See you next time.